talked a little bit about the patch and the meta, and obviously Twitter's had a lot of higher level players saying they don't like the game. Some people are claiming the meta is worse than Triple Crab, which is, oh boy, Zero's got some stuff to say about that one.
I will.
You know,
Oh,
so what's up with the state of the game? I think first I want to get rid of the Dan myth that everyone's been talking about. I feel like this has kind of become a meme because of like the brine water zone screenshots between you guys and FT1. But Triple Zooka is not actually the meta. It's funny, but I think most comps have double instead of Triple Zooka.
Yeah, I just think brine water is so all over the place, and pencil is so good on that map considering especially for zones. Like, you can just camp over it, but triple shot just works there because you have free range of shooting wherever you want with Zika. And then on top of that, you can have 3 kind of shots. Like, you can have one playing stealthy, one and looking for picks, the other 2 either farm, or one plays more playing for control and spacing mid and on their enemy side, and then that one just farms Zika only as like a kind of support way. But I don't think it's triple Zooka that we're all playing. Like, that's just like the one map everyone's seeing now and everyone's playing it on.
That or cheesing something like 10 comps.
Yeah.
Triple Zooka into 10s is very good. Stuff like that. So
I'm
not happy about that.
yeah, I wonder why. But I mean, outside of that, the state of the game to me, I still think this is one thing I've noticed just from like a bunch of talks in general. I think this is a very hard meta to be consistent in. It feels very volatile in terms of how matches flow with Zuka's just. It feels not. I don't want to say pure random because obviously it's not, but it does feel very, I guess, volatile in a sense. It feels difficult to like constantly adjust to it. It's definitely been a meta where I think the game feels out of your control a lot more than it ever has before. Like, even in Crab meta. And Crab meta had different problems to me. Like, it's not to say it didn't have flaws, but the game felt in control with Crab meta. It felt too in control. This feels like the opposite. It feels like things can shift way too easily at times.
I'll just say, at least in, like, Crab meta, the better team would always win. Like, actually, just the better team would always win. But now it feels like you can just randomly lose games because you get like Zuka'd off a spawn and there goes your special rotation. And then they have specials faster than you again, so it's just like, it snowballs so hard now, it's not even funny.
This is a joke, but awareness death, just look at the map.
Just react.
Just react faster. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's really an important thing where like it's really easy for a small mistake to snowball you, and that's kind of like something this game has a problem with in general, where it is a very snowball-heavy game, and so some things in the meta need to work to counteract that, and unfortunately, I think Zuka only makes it feel more snowball-heavy than it already was, which is a definite problem right now.
Yeah, definitely from the Crab to Zuka, order to chaos, just absolutely what Jared said. You can just lose a game in seconds.
I mean, do we want to talk about like? Do you think the double Zuka is like the best comp? Do you think that at the end of this, double Zuka is going to remain what's on top of the meta, or do you think that we will have there will be some comp that comes out on the other end that's better than Zuka?
I actually don't think double Zuka will be the best at the end. I feel like some crazy bubble comp will be better near the end if given enough time. If the developers don't just kill Zuka in like next month. Like, if they don't do that, I don't think double Zika will be meta. It's just a matter of time, just finding the right comp right now.
I still think having one Zuka is fine anyway. I just feel like I feel like the problem is a lot of players are getting just drowned out by Zuka, and they're just I'm sorry to say this, but our community is very whiny at times, and they will complain over anything.
Friendly fire.
I will, and I will get to that. I will get to that. But it's also for perspective too. Like, when I played the Crab meta, I didn't enjoy it to where we're just sitting back and getting specials. And yeah, you guys are right. It's definitely like an order kind of style where you're basically just making sure you're holding everything down with Crab, and that there's nothing you can do towards it other than just whoever's better as a team and has better Crab positionings and placements and comboing with the AoE damage, with machine and things like that. But I feel like as a frontline, you can do a lot more when it comes to shot now, considering you can just, pop Zika. Obviously, it's bad at times where you just farm it, shoot it randomly, and then you get a kill out of the sky into spawn. I think that is dumb at times, but I do feel like it brings more of a risk factor now since we have a lot of, what's it called? You kind of have to play more mechanic-wise instead of just playing off with the special. Like, you have to be able to open up the field and do certain things as well. It's not just only, let me farm Zuka, let me farm Zuka. Like, better shots will actually take the chance to punish those Zukas and make sure they get out of position, or they'll look for more fights and take better control of certain spots of the maps, like choke points and stuff like that.
I would say there's a lot more main to special weapon interactions than crab meta. Like,
yeah, it feels
like a factor.
I feel like even towards the end of crab meta though, like we were seeing stuff like, oh, let's run some Neo, let's run sword. Like there is options, just people weren't playing them because they weren't easy at all.
Yeah, I feel like that might be the same thing with this.
Yeah,
like for example, Bubble. But I don't think we're running into like 3 Zukas as of right now. Maybe like 1 or 2 maps where people were just farming like brine water, but I don't think it's a general like, you know, 3 Zukas, everyone's spamming it 24/7. I still feel like even if you're zuking like with 3 people, it's still not as, you know, stupid considering you can just punish those. It's a better punishment with Zuka, you know? Like you can go up, punish that player if he's out of position, or just chase him down and shark him out, and then once he Zukas, you kill it. But
I think when you realize that Cooler is contributing to the fact that like, oh, there's more spam than usual just because you can just pop it and you'll like you can have more. Like we didn't have that in crab meta.
Yeah.
We didn't BLS spammy. We didn't use Cooler, which we probably should have back then. Like looking back.
No, definitely not. You would just get walled out by like triple crab. It would be too much. But I think like one thing. Also, Cooler was just worse, but. I think one thing, just brief tangent on why I don't like crab to Zuka meta comparisons is like, I think a lot of what separates the meta is there is so much more stuff now. Like there is more specials in the game, there's more kits in the game, there's more maps in the game, and like there's a lot of different factors as to why one can prefer one over the other, and it's hard to say like, if crab was meta during the time we had this many kits and stages and stuff, would it have been as bad? You know, no. I don't know. So, you know, brief tangent, but that's why I don't like the comparison. It's just a very different game 1 year later, of course. But, I think personally, double Zuka does have a factor of being a lot easier. If one shot fucks up and you need a Zuka, having another one that can do the same thing, it makes it easier. And Zuka, like, obviously the amount of work you need to set up a good Zuka versus, like, a good bubble is very different from each other. Especially on lockout, so... And in a way, like, I try to say this a bit, but... the easier something is, the more consistent it is. That is still a factor you care about in competitive. Like, that's why 20xx perfect charger meta isn't a thing, because you don't hit all your shots. So, in the same way here, like, even if bubbles work in theory, it's, well, they also have to be good enough to set them up enough to counter Zuka when it matters. And that's something we haven't seen in tournament, like, to a large scale. And I don't know if we will, but maybe, you know. But that's the thing, I think the comp part Jared talked about is the main thing, is like, you know, there's a lot of like this theory stuff with Kraken or Bubble and stuff, but the question is like, is there actually a comp that works well enough to put that into practice? And that's the part where I really don't know.
It's a bit too soon to tell, like it's only been a week after the patch, and we're just like hard debating comps and stuff.
I mean, I think just there's a lot more limited options than there should be. I wish there were more kits because, like, you know, the bubble options we talked about, like, you either have a lack of bomb, you have a weapon that struggles with fighting, or you have a weapon that doesn't get a lot of bubble. There's no, like, there's no bubble weapon with the same ease of use as, like, a splatter shot, you know? Like, it's harder to fit bubble into comps because of that. And, like, if there was, like, I don't know, say, like, a 52 with suction bomb and bubble, maybe this would be way easier to find a comp that fits it, because that would solve a lot of problems. Or even, like, more cooler options to, like, make that easier, or etc., something like that. Yeah. And so I think the difficulty is, like, it takes a lot of time to theory craft a comp, and I don't even know if teams are going to want to do that, because this month, or not this month, sorry, next month is stacked with tournaments. Like, there's going to be SWC, there's Sendu's tournament, like the Platinum Cup thingy that I was talking about, there's Sendu's tournament, there's IDLE, which you need a different comp for already, and there's 20xx. Like, there's a lot of events. And if you want to spend a lot of time trying to solve the meta when there's tournaments coming up, it might impact your ability to play the game. At least for me, I've definitely considered, like, I just want to find something that works now before having to try to find something throughout the mess of tournaments that we're gonna have to play.
Yeah, I do feel like
100%.
either way it takes time. Like this happens a lot with a lot of comps. When Crab started to shut down, we still ran triple for a little bit in the beginning, and then about 2 or 3 weeks in, we started changing it, like sword, and like Jared said earlier, sword, double ball, people running double ballpoint.
Even ballpoint took a while to run. Like it was ballpoint double splash for a while.
Yeah.
Until we realized, like, actually, the ballpoint just kind of shit on the splash. Maybe we don't need 2 of them still.
I do feel like if we were to get more like weapons and more like different kits, it would be a lot different. Like for example, I feel like Inkjet. Yeah, I was about to get into that. I know. Inkjet and dualies. I feel like if that was put into the game very early, I do feel that would have been another weapon used constantly. For example, when we had Crab getting shut down because Inkjet got that buff, I feel people would have ran about like either 2 dualies, a Crab, and a ballpoint. Like that would have been a different, or like dually BP, and you have a splash and a machine, or just 2 splashes and things like that. And I feel like that would have been able to take more ground as an aggro weapon and be more consistent with the game. It balances it out in a way. We still have aggro plays, we have more pushes, and we have something to fight against Crab. And even though Crab was like the beginning of the game, so it was still like the beginning, so not really, you can't really say as much to it, but it still was overused to an extent to where it needed to get shut down. That's probably going to be the same thing with Zika, but right now it just got a slap on the wrist. You go ahead.
I will say this with like the shot pencil +1 comps, it's like you're running 2 shots and like I don't even think the main weapon for shot is that good sense of paint. Like in my head, I'm like thinking, oh, why don't we just run a bunch of mid lines? Like, oh, well, sword, point, like have a zap and then.
And now you got bamboo for that too. That's another
yeah, bamboo too.
Yeah, I feel like if you're playing shot and you're not spamming it, if you're playing as well, for example, double shot, you can't just have both of them farming. One of them needs to be able to try to do something with that space that you're giving with shot.
I literally feel like the shots enable the spammy comp because it's the only weapon that can get that many Zikas and spam that much shit at you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
like,
outside of like a charge up 10 build, which I have seen, you can actually do that with 10, but I don't know if it's very popular.
No, I've gotten 10 Zukas with no charge for 10.
I will admit though that shot does feel hard at times to play, like certain maps, and then you play certain comps. Like Knot and Pencil can just outrange that, and it just does so much to it where you can't really get in at certain times. And if you play against a tent that's really good and they can stall you out, it's also hard because the shot is trying to be a spam weapon right now, but the shot is also meant to go in. It's meant to be a front line as well. It's not just meant to farm Zika.
I don't think it's meant to be that much of a front line. Like,
I feel like it is. I still think that the weapon can still be strong in many ways. It's just the way we all look at certain weapons. It's just all right, special. We're not also adding into the factor that we can do certain things with the weapon. Like I still feel like if you play sneaky with the weapon and be smart with it, it can be strong, like really strong. And if you have really good mechanics with the weapon, it will do its work. But
I mean,
those mechanics towards like Squeeze or any other like midline weapon, those that are like actual slayers. Like,
but the problem is a lot of people can't really play Squeezer. That's the thing. Some people can, and some people just can't. And even with Squeezer being in the mix, you still can take faster fights with shot than Squeezer.
It's just again, people don't want to try because it's hard.
Yeah.
Well, Squeezer, to be fair, is a mash requirement. That's different. That starts to add stupid difficulties to it, but I mean, I think midlines are definitely like one of the answer to like double shot spam comps, because like that's, I mean, S2, that was short range lowest point, was when like you would have CDS, Brella, H3, Bamboo, and like sometimes Zap, like it would just be 3 midlines in a comp altogether, and just, yeah, that would be an absolute pain to deal with because everything just outranged you. Of course, in this game, there's no MPU, so it's not as bad. Like, it's not like you're getting killed in one less hit in this game like you were in the previous one. But it is still obviously good into it. It's just, does a midline comp have enough pieces to work against like a shot comp that's better built? Or maybe we'll see some kind of, if they spam a lot of shots, run this midline comp, but then they switch off all the shots and do like only 1 Zuka. Regardless though, I think 1 shot in comps is like pretty much going to stay regardless. It feels really weird to not have a shot in comps 99% of the time.
Agree.
I just don't think you run double because then you're just limiting like how much further up you can pay. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think double is good, but I think, like, one of the shot players needs to switch against certain comps. I think it depends heavily what you're fighting. So, like, I don't know what that other good weapon is, but, like, I think one of the shot players would have to be able to switch to, like, a more mid-range Slayer to me. Like, something that would cover what double shot is weakened to. I just don't know what exactly that weapon pool would be.
96.
Flash.
Honestly, maybe 96 Deca would be that.
The dualies.
96 Nautilus or V-Dually would be what come to mind for me.
I can see dualies working,
Because
honestly.
I think CDS and Sword you need to be too dedicated for. I don't think that's like the easy swap. Unless if you played it for a while. It's like those, you know, Dually Nod and, what was the last one? 96 are like much more feasible, I think, to play. Maybe 52 slots into that too, because 52 can be good into mid lines. It's like maybe 52 would be one as well I can see people playing.
I've been trying it out. I think it can work. It just takes more time for that because we're not 100% sure anyway. Like I was saying that earlier, like running it in with the with shot, you can kind of focus more on being aggressive and taking space as the front line with 52, and then have the other shot just spam and be around the 52 to, like, you know, guard or play for trades and things like that. But it's very dependent. I don't know how it will run against certain comps as well, because it could just get domed out of the sky by certain things or shredded immediately.
It definitely has to be tested, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. Is like that's the kind of thing you'll want. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of that, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's too much different right now. There's still a decent bit of variety and stuff you can run with this, obviously. I think it's getting a little bit smaller, to be honest, but it's not. There's still a decent amount of other things that are viable right now.
I really
I agree.
Tent's like really good too, but that also has Zika, so it's just like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Tent's just another option for it.
Yeah. It just enables some more like lane play.
It just takes time anyway. We're still into the new quotable patch, so we're gonna basically figure out what will be better, or if it will stay the same, because things might just pop out of nowhere like Crab.
Yeah. Oh yeah, to rejoin DC thing, yeah, because he DC. That plays when he joins. Yeah, I mean, I think Tent's strong, but Tent's one of those things, like, it's like Sword where, like, yeah, it's good, but you have to have a guy that plays that weapon. You can't just put someone on it. They have to already know how to play it.
A guy who plays 10, interesting.
You know.
Yeah, you don't play 10, so.
Nah.
But, I don't know. I think it's like, it's not the worst spot for things ever, I suppose. Especially if double Zooka comps can be, like, beaten out. If it can become more 1x Zooka, I think it'll be a bit more tolerable, but...
It's more enjoyable for, like, I'd say mid-level or, like, high level, but for top level, it's frustrating, like, things not being consistent in your control when you feel like you're the better team in that aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That might be something to talk about, actually, because there is still a lot of mid to high level discussion that's like, but guys, look at this other option over here, but this is good. You know, I'm like, do you want to talk a bit about why, like, that sentiment isn't really shared amongst the more top teams? Why has it felt like,
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, there's been a lot of
like,
talk.
give me an example.
Like why aren't teams just running like a bunch of bubbles or Krakens to deal with it? This is clearly a counter. Let's not just spam a bunch of Zooka. It has counterplay. The whole kind of argument about that.
My only argument is that, like, you have to play against the better teams to think about, like, how will this even work? Like, maybe it might work in, like, lower level lobbies because they're not playing how the compound should be played. Like, I feel like mid level's just running around, then they have their special, and then they get to kill somebody for fun. But, like, top level, they're, like, trying to take certain spots, make sure that we hold them, baiting out specials.
Yeah, I was gonna say baiting out specials.
Baiting out specials is a big one. If you can get someone to burn Zook on you, it's massive. You know?
And then if you have Cooler on, just jump out and just would it waste it completely? There isn't much you can do on that.
And it's like a good pop bubble is like really hard to get, but like with a bad pop Zooka is still fine because it can still randomly find value. If you pop a bad bubble, you're still gonna have a bad bubble. It's not gonna do anything.
Yeah, if you don't get a
if
kill
anything,
with
it'll be
Zooka,
negative because you can't farm the next one because it'll just
you can't get the next one.
It's a huge weakness.
Zooka, you can farm it, and if you do get if you miss the shots and you don't get a kill, you just try to get AoE damage off.
I'm gonna piggyback. Or Zero, you good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I cut you off. I want to piggyback off of what Jared said. Like, top level is a lot more optimized in terms of how they play their comps. In terms of, you know, let's just run something else that isn't the double Zooka. And if you're fighting a double Zooka with let's say the junior 96 thing. It's so much harder to guarantee that value when you're fighting players who are that level of optimized on
And they might just say like, oh, just play it
Zukas.
more and optimize it, but it's like we don't have
It's
time. We don't have
yeah.
time. Like that's the problem. Like I would love to try more things, but we don't have the time or the quality of practice to do that.
Yeah.
Unlike Japan does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get the sentiment a lot of like top players just aren't trying hard enough for it, which I hate. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people
come on,
understand
Jared.
how I think top level West right now, like as someone who's been at top level for a long time now, like, you know, longer than most of these guys, I think that the scene has never been more open to running different comps than it has been before.
Yeah, literally.
In
Yeah,
S2, most of the good teams just ran pure meta every time. The fact that there's like this much of difference in playstyle and weapon comps at top level is like, no, it is better than it ever has been in terms of willingness to experiment. It is the opposite of that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Coming from Splat 1 as well.
And it's not even just like weapon picks, like these teams have like different ways they approach the game. And like I don't think people understand that either.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
we may have the same comps, but it'll be different. Like we're completely two different teams, us and Starburst.
Yeah.
Like if you just watch replays or anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important to say. And also, like, you know, like you said, experimentation is harder and time consuming. Like, no one is obligated to do that. You know, just
We're not
because...
obligated, and we would want to if we wanted to optimize the game. If teams had a reason, but the only teams that have a reason right now are like teams that are going to Worlds. Those are like region diff. Like we can't just play those teams easily.
Yeah, it's unfortunately just not that simple at the end of the day, which, you know, sucks,
Yeah.
but it is what it is there. And, I mean, I think the game will still get better over time, but it's clearly going to... It's going to take some effort, and, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a good amount of stuff being tried right now, but it's important to really consider the amount of effort it takes, and stuff is not free.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of effort required and the fact that it takes definitely more than a week after a patch to really come up with a good answer to this. Like, it's been a week after the patch. Zuka's been prevalent for a little bit, but, you know, it's going to take a little bit for teams to really find a solid answer.
It's also worth noting in this case, if you're a team looking to play all these majors, the second the last major is over, there's another patch.
Yeah.
So, like, there's even less incentive than usual because there's going to be majors throughout the entire month in, like, a week and a half. And then after that, there's going to be another update, which will more than likely change things since they're also going to add a stage and weapons and possibly new specials or different main guns and stuff like that. So there's even less of a reason to, like, really try and force things when it's going to change by the time it's over and you want to just get some good results in when these tournaments are popping up.
Yep.
So, like in this case, the tournament schedule I think does really play a factor. November is like the most stacked month of tournaments for this entire year outside of like maybe September's tournaments. Like there is a lot to consider there and teams want to do well in it, not just push the game for some arbitrary reason. So,
I agree.
Facts.
We have no reason to push the game right now too, because at least in Jackpot's case, this patch is not going to be played on it.
Yeah, exactly. You guys in
we
Worlds
don't
are going to
care.
have something different by then. There's going to be 2 patches by the time Worlds comes around. Or maybe just
Yeah.
1, actually, if they don't.
It's
If they
just
keep
one
it on the
patch.
old patch, it'll probably just be the next one. But it's like, you guys have a wait anyway. Like, some stuff will carry over, but also, like, yeah, that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
So, I think that's an important factor to get. We'll see what happens, but as a whole, I would still say I don't like the state of the game. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be, but I think it's hard to be consistent. It's very frustrating, and it definitely feels a lot more out of your control than ever. But it still does have diversity. It still does have things that can be tried, and there's still a variance in how all the top teams are playing compared to like crap meta. So, I mean, I think it's not that bad, but it does have its own fair share of problems that I can understand why people would feel worse about them than what we dealt with. If you're,
Yeah.
like, more okay with that style of control, then I think crab meta could be more appealing. But if you really want to fight, then obviously crab meta is not going to feel as good. To me, I think it's just very different preference styles, but, you know, hopefully it gets better regardless.
Yeah.
Well,